Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Indie Game Movement, the podcast that talks about the marketing and business of indie games. I'm Andrew Pappas. I'm going to be your host today, and this is episode 274, where we're going to be talking about how to create Steam events. Now, discoverability is a huge factor when trying to get players to know more about your game, and most of us know Steam events can be a big factor in this. However, the number of events you generally are able to attend can be limiting, thus reducing your exposure. So, thankfully, our guest today explains how you can create your own opportunities and set up your own Steam themed events to help maximize your discoverability on Steam. So, that's what we're going to be talking about right here today on Indie Game Movement. Hey everybody, and we're back, and today with this I have Janek from Frogsong Studios. Janek, how's it going, man?
Hey, pretty good. How about you?
I can't complain. The weather's nice. It's at the end of the week, and just happy to be here on the show. What else is new with you? What's been going on?
Playing a little bit of games, doing a lot of work.
A lot of work.
The usual, I guess. The usual.
And for those listening, this is actually a colleague and good friend of mine too, but a lot of interesting things that we're going to talk about. But okay, so that's why it was a little bit more of a casual opening there. But let's go ahead. If you could, would you mind sharing us a little bit about what you do for Frogsong Studios, and also maybe share a little bit about yourself in terms of hobbies or other things you like to do when you're not working?
Yep. So my name is Janek Krasoczko. I am Polish. I live in Poland. And I work for a Swedish studio currently as a marketing and community manager. I like to think of myself as a marketing generalist, which means I do a little bit of everything, which I'm pretty sure feels very relatable to many people listening. That's the way it often goes in indie studios, right? And personally, I clock a lot of hours in Dota 2, for example. Try not to do as much these days, but it's definitely my most played game on Steam. Recently playing some Deus Ex, Mankind Divided. Really loved the first game, and now the second one feels like a natural extension of the first game. So enjoying it much so far.
Nice. Well, you did. I'm not going to lie. You did jump the gun a little bit in terms of the staple question we have in the Q box round, but that's okay because I know you have a pretty big lineup of games and stuff that you play regularly, and which is good to make the time for, because I mean sometimes we get so distracted that we don't make the time for playing games, which is kind of the reason why we're doing these things, for people to play games, right? So it's good to
exactly
to do that. So I don't know, I might press you a little further to find out what other games that you're playing outside of the most recent ones. But that said, thank you very much for sharing a little bit about yourself a little bit more. And yeah, as I already said, let's put you into the Q box round to get to know you a little bit more. So are you ready?
As ready as I ever will be, Andrew.
All right, excellent.
Let's go ahead with this.
All right. What's the coolest piece of swag you ever received at a convention?
That's an interesting question, because actually I have not been to a physical convention, not even once in my life. But I've been to a couple of fantasy conventions, for example.
That counts. Yeah.
That counts for sure.
So what'd you get?
And I've also been to authentic medieval castle, actually, here in Poland, which is in Hancine, like a very small town, a little bit south middle of Poland, I guess. And you could get like all kind of interesting medieval swag in there. So like the coolest thing that I brought was like a life-sized wooden replica of a two-handed sword.
Oh, okay, cool.
And we currently plan to like hang it on the wall with hanging horizontally and visible to all the visitors.
I love that. And I can relate because when I went to Japan, I brought back home a boken, which
Mm,
isn't
right.
visibly shown to anybody. And on occasion, the kids would take it and, I don't know, beat up trees with it in the yard, which not very fond of.
Yeah. Like just strictly video game wise, I don't think I'm that big into physical merchandise and swag. I've got my fair share of t-shirts, obviously.
Nice.
So
So you got
like
some stuff
for
over the years from some of these conventions.
yeah, for sure. Like I've got a lot of t-shirts, for example, back from when I worked at GOG.
Okay.
That's when we got like stuff which was obviously branded in house. So both GOG.com and CD Projekt as well.
Nice.
And then obviously like there was some stuff that was brought from by business people from conventions because like big company, but just so the selected few get to travel.
Nice. Cool.
So get myself some t-shirts for different games that way.
So yeah, over the time, you've definitely gotten some cool things and stuff. Now, next, what is your biggest gaming pet peeve?
Oh, I probably have so many, but I've actually saved a couple of them because like I have a collection of tweets when I just complain on a bunch of stuff. Like for example, I don't get Lovecraftian as a genre at all. Like it does not speak to me. But I'm not big for horror in the first place.
Ah, okay.
And just like Lovecraftian is bad, and like usually when I say it out loud, most people get pretty annoyed and like they say like what do you don't like about it, and like say, oh, this is because most games that are being made in this setting are not very good, and they're not like doing very great job utilizing that setting.
Fair point.
But
And
yeah, that
and I could see that. All right. If you could only speak one word for an entire day, what would it be?
hmm
Is that your
I don't
final
know,
answer?
like I'm like usually stuck with those funny catchphrases from TikTok. Because I do a lot of TikTok both personally and then for work as well.
Yeah.
And the trends can like really get into your head. Like this is like a meta meme even in TikTok community.
So
Like
so which one? Which one specifically? Would you pick? Would you say for a day? That's
it's not one word, but like there is this song like that my money don't jiggle jiggle.
say that all day. Okay. Fair
Yeah, my
enough.
money don't like like there was an interview with a guy, and then he says that he raps a little, and then he starts like, my money don't jiggle jiggle, it folds, I want to see a wiggle wiggle for sure.
Okay. I might put you
And
up
I,
to that to see if you could do that just for a day. I might regret it.
it's like when you spend time on TikTok and then you see like 1,000 videos with the same sound in it, that can get under your skin, man.
Yeah. That's hilarious though. That's a very interesting one to pick. All right. If you had to sing karaoke, what song would you pick?
Probably something by Coldplay.
Something by
Like
Coldplay. Okay.
this is yeah, this is like the music that I grew up with, and very singable too.
Hmm.
I don't mind like hitting the high pitch as well, like the high tones. Even though I have a very deep voice at the first, like the first impression is that I have a very deep voice, but I have no problem like you
Wow.
know.
So I don't know, maybe sometime then. I would love to hear this, by the way, if this ever happens. But you could, sing "Aha, Take on Me." Like, there you go. You think you could do that?
Maybe some other time.
Okay, so fair enough. All right, and last but not least, and again, we're going to be pushing you a little bit here. What game are you playing now? So you listed some others, but I don't know. What are the ones that other recent ones you've played that you didn't mention that really stood out to you?
Right. I'm actually like a little into Call of Duty Warzone because like this is how to say it, like the taste of the month for our gaming group, I guess. Like,
Okay.
I have this group of friends that I know since childhood, and we play different games together. And like, for example, it used to be Killing Floor many years ago, and now it's Call of Duty Warzone.
Okay, good.
But I try out like a lot of different stuff, and I have a very specific background in my when it comes to my platform choice. Like, for example, in US, y'all are very console oriented, right? But for me, it's like obviously PC first, because in Poland, like the Western companies that were behind the consoles were not a thing in the 90s when I was growing up. So like PC first, and then now with phone games as well. I really enjoy like basically exploring the medium, the platform as a medium. Like, for example, what was recently evolved it with Steam Deck is they released a Portal themed game that was basically a tutorial for Steam Deck, because it was like utilizing different controls out of it, like there were touchpads included and everything.
Yep.
And I really like games that are trying to utilize the platform-specific controls. Like, for example, I don't like what games on PC say this game should be played with a controller. I'm playing on PC, so like, how about you drop something which is more unique to my platform?
I'm sure that could open up a very interesting discussion in general. But I can see your point and from that, but. Yeah, we won't go into it today because we'd be here all day, I think, talking about that.
I'm pretty sure that this is a very sensitive topic. But
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I've actually said about it at first because I was trying to like defend a little bit my interest in mobile games, because like most people are like, well, mobile games suck. The real games are on PC and console, right? But not when the mobile games are done right and like they are utilized the touch screen properly.
Yep.
Like, for example, when a game just has touch gamepad, right? Like touch controller, which is being visible on the screen. This is not a very good way to do it, because that's just imitating console controls.
Exactly. Yep. No, all good points. And it makes complete sense there. So, well, Janek, appreciate you sharing and all those extra details and everything within the Q-Box round, and allowing us to get to know you a little bit more. But let's get into the meat of the discussion today, and why you're here to talk with us, which is covering how to create Steam events. Because I know this is something that's probably top of mind for some people, some listeners and such. So I would love to kind of kick off this discussion with, is there a limitation to the number of events you can participate on Steam? Because for some quick context here, there's lots of events, and I know this is kind of like top of mind for a lot of people, and if it's not, it should be. Getting into these type of events, looking to see what you can do to get featured, all those things. Events are definitely a big contributor and focus for a lot of people in terms of, getting exposure, wish lists, all those things that we're all after. So back to the question, and because this is such a important thing, out of other things, of course, too, but this one being one of the main one, is there a limitation on the number of events you can participate on Steam? And obviously this is going to factor into what we're going to talk about, but what would you say? So yes, is there a limitation?
So, like, first to clarify, I assume that what you mean by Steam events is so-called Steam festivals, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Like the big ones with a dedicated page when you can like scroll it for curated selections, etc. And they are like usually there is a theme to it.
Right.
Very nice way to discover new games. Like for example, with Steam Next Fest upcoming games,
Yep.
or like recently with just newly started racing games festival, I believe,
exactly.
hosted by Steam.
Current at the time of this recording. Yes.
Yeah. So first of all, I guess we need to make a distinction between what we mean by Steam event and Steam festival. And the term that I've been using also is Steam sale event, right? Because like usually also you want to put a discount on this game. So where I'm headed with this is usually with this kind of events, you need to distinguish between discounting the price of the game and like making the sale in sense of something like winter sale or summer sale. So just discounting the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then just being featured on the page and, recommended by the algorithm on the first place, or maybe like it's carrying some nice deal with the event organizer being there, put there manually on the top. So while there is a limit, obviously, on how often you can discount your game on Steam,
Mm-hmm.
I believe the Valve lowered that limit a couple months ago. Like this is now something like 30 days, so like just 1 month, something like that.
And they call that like a cooldown period, correct? Is that the terminology they use?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So like the discount like actually works absolutely the same way it works for all other discounts. So like seasonal sales, like winter, summer sale on Steam, but then also manual sales, manual discounts like the launch discount, right, that you always have when you launch your product.
Mm-hmm.
But then also things like midweek madness, weekend deal, and like basically all kind of regular discounts. Like this is all the same regardless if you're participating in an event or not. And the only thing that you need to remember is basically that there's like 30 days cooldown, but Steam seasonal events do not like. There's like exception to this cooldown rule, which is the Steam seasonal events like winter sale and summer sale, etc.
And you know what? I'm jumbling my words here. I'm kind of happy that you actually broke that, like, provide that distinction too, because if you think about it, like, you know, when we're talking about marketing in general, like that's so encompassing, and so many people have different interpretations of what marketing really is, right?
Right.
So in the same token, breaking down events in terms of, hey, this can relate to, you know, there's lots of various different types of events, and while, you know, we're mainly just going to be talking about like themed events to outline, it's like, hey, there's discount events that are happening. There's other like aspects of these that are not just like a seasonal event, but can be incorporated into another type of event and such. So I'm glad you mentioned that and clarified that a bit, because it's definitely important. I guess the other thing I'm curious about too is, so, you know, there's some cooldown periods that occur, but like, let's say, for example, because I think there were some recent changes too that happened with this, but like for Steam Next Fest, right now you can only or participate in one of those for the life of the game, correct? If that's a good way of saying it.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand the question here. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I'm just saying, like, for some types of events, there would be some limitations. So it's like Steam Next Fest. You can only participate once in a Steam Next Fest.
Right. But yeah, I actually haven't thought of that. Like, Steam Next Fest has some clear rules. Like, for example, it has to be an upcoming game, right? It cannot be the game that is currently released. Because your goal is to feature your demo and get the wishlist for your upcoming game. And the other thing that you mentioned is that you only can participate in it once. But this is this is because this is an event which is hosted like entirely by Valve. And what we are going to talk about today is that Steam festivals are not meant to be like just hosted by Valve. Like this is a Steamworks feature actually, which is being offered to all developers, all publishers on the platform.
Ah, okay. And so I like how you differentiated that there too, in terms of host, like how it's hosted essentially, right? And it's actually, I think, a good segue too to kind of talk about this aspect of it a little bit further in terms of like, okay, you talked about the themed events, how they're hosted, which is basically, well, we'll get into it in a moment, but like, how do you go about like, essentially creating your own Steam events? Because that's here what we're talking about too, obviously, but you know,
Right.
what are some ways to do that? So to kind of like lead that off this discussion here is, what steps would you say are necessary to prepare before, let's say, reaching out to Steam about your event that you are proposing or that you would like to essentially host, if you will?
Well, if I were to speak from experience, the answer is none. Like all you have to do is some kind of idea, I guess, and determination to see it through, because that's basically how it worked out in my case. Today I'm trying to. Yep.
I was just gonna say, please share about that that experience that you had in terms of like what the event was, and kind of walk us through that process a little bit, I guess, so we have a better understanding of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, like, just for clarity for our listeners, I am the person behind the Friendship Games Week on Steam, which was the event happening in February this year, 2022.
Okay. Yeah.
And I pretty much organized it single-handedly. I mean, that's how it proves that this is not such a big deal, because just one indie marketer was able to pull it off. Of course, there was Valve involved as well. There was I'll get to that, right? But I was like the main driving force behind this in the first place. So
cool. So you had an idea, and you're like, "Hey, I want to do the friendship style games or whatever. I'm gonna pitch this to Steam." So, all right, that's where we're at now.
That's basically what it started. How it started. Like, I just opened a Steamworks ticket, and like this is actually super crucial. What I'm talking about is, if you're a Steamworks developer, if you're releasing a game on Steam, you should never be afraid to try to open a ticket and speak with the Valve team and ask questions, like even the most stupid ones, because honestly, like that's where the Steam business team is there for. Like, they are there to answer our questions as developers, because they make money out of our games, so they want to see us succeed. And that's what I basically did. Like, I reached out. Like, in the past, like, there was a way to reach out to the Steam business team by direct email, which I'm not going to share here, because what Valve already said since is, like, basically we are trying to retire this address and move completely towards the ticket system. So, like, if you're on the Steamworks page, you can like just go to support and start a ticket regarding help with publishing your game. And that's what I did. And what I asked was, like, basically, hey, like, what can I do to start an event or a sale that would be featured on Steam front page? Like, I was completely honest about it. There was like no
like major connections or anything along those lines. It was just simply asking the question.
Yeah, they were simply asking the question. And this was like even before the video was published on the Steam page, or maybe around the same time. Like, today I'm helping myself a little bit with a blog article from Chris Zukowski's website, How to Market a Game, which is on, like, what Valve thinks about the future of festivals on Steam. And this is basically a summary of couple points from Valve Q&A on DevGam and IndieX. And this happened in November 2021. And basically, they recommended watching a video, which is like available on Steamworks YouTube channel. And this is basically Steamworks Deep Dive hyphen Steam front page. And what they're doing there is like they are explaining this functionality pretty much, like hosting the festivals on Steam. But yeah, like I've pretty much timed it in a way so like I started the whole thing at the same time when they are started basically pushing it more publicly and encouraging people to do this kind of stuff. So I guess it was a pretty good timing.
Nice. So
because what they did is like they replied basically with steps what I'm supposed to do.
Okay.
Like step-by-step instructions.
So you ask the host this type of event, they get back to you and say either yes or no, basically. In your case, yes. And then they gave you kind of a checklist process in terms of what was needed to fulfill this. Now, I'm sure you could probably share some of those things, and some of them are probably straightforward. Like they want some type of like banner art, for example, is probably one thing. What else are there other certain like requirements? Like, are there a certain number of games that they maybe want you to help facilitate get on board, or is that on them? Do they go ahead and be like, oh, you know what, we're going to invite a bunch of people who kind of meet these requirements based off of what their profile or what they listed on their page as for certain tags, for example?
Right. So this is again when I want to make a distinction between two things here, and the one thing is the Steam event, Steam sale event / Steam festival, and the other thing is the front page featuring. And this is basically what Valve wanted to make perfectly clear from the beginning, which was like, okay, so like, do you have your own publisher page? And the answer in case for Frogsong Studios was well, we do. So if you have the publisher page, you can host your own sale event. Like basically, the first thing that you need to do is to write a Steamworks ticket to us, which you already did, and then we enable this feature for you. And once they do it, like basically you get this self-serve backend when you can like configure everything with uploading the banners that you like just mentioned, like all the key artwork, but then also listing all the games in the event, etc., etc. And like what they said basically is like, okay, so like if you're running an event, if you were like a big publisher and you had, for example, 10 games in your portfolio, you could just make a sale out of those 10 events, right? 10 games, right? Mm-hmm. But in your case, you want to run a themed event, right? And Friendship Games Week was an event circled around local multiplayer games, like basically, sitting together on a couch, controller in hand, and playing games together with friends. And basically, what they said, like you need other games, right, to participate in this event.
Right.
So I don't know if this was like implied or just like
I was just simply
explained directly, like that I need a permission from everyone that wants to participate, right?
Right. Yep.
And pretty much what I did next was like writing everything down, like all the information about what I'm exactly doing, preparing mailing, preparing a survey form, basically for people that want to enter, right, in their games. And I started mailing other indie games. Like there was a lot of work involved in like manually scouting the games that are qualifying for this kind of event, because their games are local multiplayer. And like I've basically compiled this list in a spreadsheet of hundreds of publishers, pretty much. And out of them, just part of them, right, were willing to participate and replied that they are interested.
Okay, so then, in this case, then, and and I'm just simply asking too. You did a lot of the legwork in terms of getting other people to participate in this. Whereas I know sometimes there might be themed events where if you already have your Steam page up and everything, you may or may not get invited to some other themed events from Steam at least, or at least like communication is coming from Steam. It can vary basically depending on what the event, who's organizing it, that type of stuff, correct?
Yeah, I mean the themed events hosted by Steam is like relatively fresh new thing.
Mm,
They only started hosting them a couple months back, and yeah, what they are doing basically is like they are looking if you have, for example, of the current festival, a racing game that might participate. A little bit earlier, there was an event for roguelikes, right?
yep.
So
It was like a couple weeks
so
before
yeah,
or something.
that's how it works. But then what you mentioned, that like there are also events which we can self-host basically, but then also events like hosted by completely like third party, not a Steamworks developer or publisher,
Hmm.
just a third party. And what I mean by that is like events like Gamescom, mm, Tokyo Game Show, right?
Yep.
This kind of events. DreamHack, this kind of stuff also like brings a lot of visibility to the games, and yeah, that's how you basically can get invited to those without like doing everything, without doing anything by
Gotcha.
yourself, right?
So a good breakdown then of because again these are all themed events, but they all vary. There's like subcategories. So third party, as you mentioned, and those are a lot of the times other conventions that are going on. Not all of them. It all depends because and it varies. Like some years you'll have some conventions I believe that partnered with Steam, still in this third party group that then might get some featuring, for example, or some type of themed event going on in collaboration with that event. So there's that. Then there's the ones we're talking about, creating your own themed events, where basically, in your case, you took on the responsibility to do a good part of that work. Just Steam provides you with that platform, so the invitations and such like that. And then there's the Steam themed events, which are outside of, let's say, Steam Next Fest, the ones you just mentioned, the roguelike ones, the racing one, and things along those lines. So there's kind of like three groupings, if you will: manual, third party, and then Steam themed events. So
Yeah, that's true. But then what is important from the marketing perspective is for gamers, for Steam users, there is no difference between those, right? Like they
yeah,
all
you're right.
see
Yep.
them the very same way. So think about it this way: if there is a big Steam event like Steam Next Fest, or maybe like an event related to a large industry event like Gamescom, and then there is an event that you hosted on your own, you are already playing in the same league as the big guys, and you are basically getting the same kind of visibility and reaping the same kind of rewards as the big guys. So this is why is it worth it. And this is like, for example, uh, it was necessary for me to invite all those participating games into the event, because on our own, nobody would be interested in an event that basically just featured our games,
Right.
because I mean, it doesn't speak anything about our quality of our games, but we are only have released 2 games on Steam so far as a studio.
Right, because and with the collaboration, or not necessarily collaboration, just having other attendees and making sure it's a valid
Right.
theme. It's good for Steam, obviously, but it reflects well on everybody else that's participating. Um,
Yeah. And here is the thing, like what Valve told me from the very beginning is like, if you want to go to the front page, like we cannot guarantee you that in any way, because this is an arbitrarily made decision on our side.
yep.
But if you collect like enough, like a large enough number of games that will bring in a variety of audience to the event page, That's how basically you can get featured.
Okay. So
So like
it's
basically we are bringing something to them so they can return that favor basically, because like for example, if we hosted this event with like 100 games from about 60 publishers, which was the case, uh, we were bringing our fans already into the event, like trying, like promoting the game on our social channels, basically saying them like check out this cool collection of local multiplayer games that you can play with friends. And people came, and once that happened, like Valve had no problem with featuring our event on front page as well. Like we did not get a full takeover, like the largest banner that you can see on the very front page of the Steam,
mm-hmm.
but we were still on the Steam front page in one of the promoted deals.
Oh, sweet. So, I mean, there's definitely like some major benefit that can come from this. And I mean, it makes sense in terms of driving that relevant traffic. And in doing so, and plus and it's not just you. This is the other thing I like about this, creating this own event. And we'll probably get into some of these too, as far as other opportunities. By you're not just driving this traffic, you have 60 other publishers essentially that are also helping in driving this traffic. And based off of that, especially to what level they're participating in, because some of these could probably have their product for sale. Some of them are upcoming releases. And if you all this traffic is being driven and sending those proper signals to Steam, then you can get featuring and everything else. And again, it makes sense why Steam would reward you for that. So a lot of good stuff can happen out of this. And also, if you think about it too, it really mitigates things from a marketing perspective in terms of the amount of legwork that you typically do to drive traffic to your game in the first place, right? I mean, anything else you want to expound upon that, I guess? But that's what I'm getting from all of this, and that's why I think it's so awesome.
Yeah, like this was the initial the initial motivation. Pretty much, we wanted to promote our own game, but to do that, like basically, we needed some resources that we couldn't afford otherwise. Where we are not a big publisher, we cannot offer a large marketing budget, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what we could do is basically talk to other indies and ask them, do they want to team up and like together host a event page that will come to the front page of Steam and bring the traffic and purchases to everyone. And what I love about it is I made a satisfaction survey afterwards, and almost 100% of people were super satisfied.
Nice.
Like pretty much everyone gets something out of it, and because it was a themed event, it was like also relatively better than other events, like for example winter sale or summer sale, which is like super generic, right? And super general because all games on Steam are participating.
Right, yeah.
And just one point that I want to emphasize here is I subscribe to the school of thought here that other indies are not your enemy when you're an indie, because we would never be able to get to the front page of Steam if it wasn't for others that wanted to participate in that goal. And in the end, like I said, everyone was satisfied. That's at least that's what they reported in the end survey. So if we work together, we are able to basically overcome the market odds, which are not always in our favor when we just stand alone.
Yeah, very very great point. And I want to in some of those too, I want to drill into a little bit further. So, and I know that this I'm not familiar with the survey that you sent out. I'm glad that you did that though, because that's definitely a good thing to kind of like, hey, overall, like was this worth the energy, the effort to do? But based off of like 100% saying that they were satisfied, and for a lot of different reasons. What are some of the main ones that people were most satisfied? Was it like basically the number of wish lists they got, the number of sales they made? What that you can recall stood out to you the most in terms of why people were satisfied?
I mean, I've asked about like very specific yet still very general questions
Yeah.
about all three kinds of those numbers. So just like you said, traffic, wish list, and sales. And basically for each of those categories, I asked two questions. First question was basically, did you saw an increase in any of those categories on just pinpoint, did you see yes or no an increase in these categories? And the second question was the impact better than in other Steam events that you participated?
Okay.
And for many of them it was just because it was a themed event.
Yep. Yeah, and another thing too that I want to call out to, being themed can really help target your audience that much better than to the point that you made before with, hey, we have the winter fest going on, the winter event, but because everybody's included, it's so broad that it sometimes you can probably get, or most likely it's going to be the bigger games that have that much more clout, that have that much bigger marketing budgets, that maybe get a little bit more of that type of attention, opposed to others that are relatively small and such. And because I know there's been talks about it all over the place in terms of who gets what for results, and the variables are the list goes on because I mean then there's a lot of other factors that come into play. Whereas
Right.
a very specific theme, you're kind of like, I mean, think about it, like how many people participate in like this seasonal events compared to, like you said, at least 60 publishers. I don't know what that means for titles that were there, but I'm sure that number is quite limited in comparison to. So that means limited number, much more exposure and relevant exposure. So chances are wishlist, let's say, for example, wishlist collected that at that point in time are going to be much more relevant than maybe some other type of awareness or discoverability event or other things happening. So a lot of benefits to definitely come from there.
Yeah. I mean, Friendship Games Week was a mixed type event, which means that both upcoming games were participating, but then also there were already released games on a discount. So it was largely a sale event with some upcoming games participating as well. So maybe more than wish lists, what we wanted to target specifically was sales with this one.
Now,
and this is the difference that you mentioned. Like when there is something like a winter sale or summer sale, your game, if it is already on wishlist for a user, it is competing with all other games on that wishlist, right? So we are talking tens, maybe hundreds of other games. But when there is like a timed event just focused on one type of game, that works like much better in your favor. And like in general goes back to the topic of that discounts on Steam is a good thing, and you should do them as often as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And now let me ask you this, because now you give me another idea when you mentioned like there's a little bit more focus on the on products that are available for sale compared to upcoming titles. Do you have an idea of what that split was in terms of people who participated? Was there, so you said more focus on the sales, and what I'm getting at is of the people that were of upcoming games, how satisfied, I guess, were they? Was a high number, but you said basically across the board, everybody was pretty satisfied, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it almost doesn't matter between the product type that they had or whether it was available or not. Everybody was still happy with the results.
I did not get into it because the sample was not large enough to think that splitting this data would be interesting. But just like I said before, like there were very few people that did not report any increase and were not satisfied. So since everyone pretty much was satisfied across the board, that's good enough for me.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, and the reason why I'm asking this too, because like it's always curious to know, like, do some people have an advantage over others type situation in terms of what the offering is, or if it's available or not.
But just if we're talking about our own game, D Corp, from Frogsong Studios, we saw as much, obviously relatively, but as much as in an increase in sales as we saw in wishlist as well. Because like for some people, like maybe they are not buying the game right now, maybe they are thinking that they will still wait for a larger discount, so they still just wishlisted the game even though like it was already on sale and already discounted.
No, that's another good point too. But still, I mean, across the board, a lot of interesting things are happening. Now, one other thing I want to talk about in terms of like, let's say promoting this event, and now that you have all these connections essentially made with these other publishers or developers and studios, two things that I'm gonna. I'll ask this one first. Were you at all strategic in terms of outside of the let's say the product itself? So let's say obviously you want to find good games because the better quality of games that you have in your event, the better the event is likely to turn out for everybody, right? But
Right.
were you a little bit? Were you outside of the quality? Were you also strategic in terms of who you reached out to? In terms of, let's say, there might be indie studios that have a little bit more clout than other relatively unknown indie studios, or was that a factor in deciding some of these people and who to invite?
Oh, Andrew, I was very strategic about it.
Okay, I figured as much.
I mean, in the first place, like I've been hearing a lot of voices that it is important to get the game of a certain sales level, right? So like even if those sales info is not publicly available, there are some good estimates out there thanks to the Steam reviews algorithm or Steam followers algorithm, right? So like just multipliers of those numbers. And I knew that we need to go for some big, still indie, but big fish. Because we knew that a big game or a larger publisher is going to give us like this level of prestige and this level of audience that we wouldn't be able to offer without them. I mean, I would still be like satisfied if only like the smallest of guys were participating, because I really wanted to see them succeed, as especially them, right? Because they did not have access to large marketing budget like big publishers do. But then definitely there was like planning. Can we get those guys? Can we get those guys? Because they will bring in numbers, and Valve will look at us more mercifully once we have them on board.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, and that's what I would suspect too. But I think it's also a very important note to make, because it's just because it's on you and everything else to invite all these people. You asked for the event. They gave Steam gave you the okay. There's still some work and legwork to be involved outside of simply just inviting anybody, like making sure it's a good quality game, but also understanding that, like you said, the association that you have, the prestige, all these other factors, can really play into how this event can be successful for everybody, not just the big players too, but everybody, including yourselves. Because let's face it, if while you still want to support the community and other people that are, let's say, relatively unknown because they just don't have the time or resources to market as much as another studio, perhaps, that added level can really help kind of move you up the ranks, so to speak, if you will. And it also, think about it from the user, or I mean the player's perspective. If they see every single game that they see is relatively unheard of, to a degree, then that might change their behavior and how they interact with the event or check out other games and things along those lines. So that's why I thought it was really cool, interesting to kind of call that out and to discuss a little bit more, because that can be a huge factor in terms of what kind of makes or breaks your event, so to speak.
Yeah, that's true, and this is like also the reason probably why I decided that only positive reviewed games can participate.
So you set some like even basic criteria to kind of like look at that as well, and makes complete sense.
Yeah, like, this is all about the end consumer psychology, right? And when they see the mixed reviews, for example, which are already like marked with a different color, they might think, oh, okay, so we are talking about some not quality games here, right? So I've definitely like made it a basic requirement that the game need to be positive rated in the first place. And then when we go back to that strategic planning, there was also the matter of designing the event page itself. And what I had to do is like basically prepare some collections which would appear in an order on the top, one on the top of another, right? Like just rows of games. And for example, something that I really wanted to make it work is we had a hidden gems category, basically for games that did not reach a certain review quota, but they still were like already very positive or like overwhelmingly positive.
So yeah, so I mean, you put some creativity into this in terms of also finding other ways to help promote and get more exposure for everybody that was participating.
Yeah.
Nice. I like that a lot, especially the hidden gems one or whatever. So what I want to do, because I know we're coming on time here, I want to talk about just at least a lesson learned, and one that I'm curious, the most important one to me, I guess, is when you are creating another Steam event, is there anything that you would do differently the next time around? And yeah, I'm just curious.
Right. So, I mean, this went really well, despite we had some issues on the way, definitely, but we were able to handle them quite quickly and communicate everything to participating parties. What I was disappointed with for sure this time was the press coverage, because like we did not get pretty much any press coverage for this one, because from their perspective, it's just like yet another Steam festival, yet another sale. So like they are not going to like bring any eyes onto that event. And this is why those events are mostly about leveraging the platform itself, just the Steam itself, like bringing the attention of people that are visiting the platform on the front page, but then they are also browsing for trending or new deals, new promotions going on. So this is something important that Steam gives us these tools for us to use them. What I would do differently, like I would definitely would like to think like, how can we reach better to both press and influencers? That's for sure.
Yeah, and maybe, and I'm just thinking too, maybe that could also be, because again, by having all these people that that you invited and that are participating, it could be kind of like a collaboration process, or shared resources, or any other number of other things to kind of, extend, like kind of pool together resources to make the most out of it. So all that weight isn't necessarily on one or even just a small number of people.
Yeah. I mean, we already went for that with this one, but I guess that is true, that next time I would like to maybe put more focus on thinking what everyone can bring to the table. Because, for example, we did not do Steam broadcasting with this event, while many developers already declared that they would be happy to broadcast. So maybe this was a mistake, but the event was successful either way. So I'm just wondering what could have happened if we decided to do broadcasting.
Right. Yeah. Like how much more could have you've gotten out of the event outside of it already being successful. So Well, there's always like other opportunities that we can learn from, you know, the past and other things. So, and it's even better when they work out well, and you are like, wow, we can even amplify its success further based off of, you know, some of the missed opportunities we didn't consider at that time. So, or were able to for whatever reason. So, no, I
That's right.
like that a lot.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, so we've got time here, or we're coming to time. So in closing, you know, we discussed a lot, but would you, you know, what three like suggestions or tips would you recommend to our listeners today, based off of what we talked about in creating, you know, Steam events?
Right. Um, like first and most important is what I've already mentioned in the beginning. Do not hesitate to reach out to Steam business team to send that ticket through Steamworks interface and ask them basically how to do it. They will link you the documentation. They will tell you the steps, and this documentation is already available publicly anyway. It's all part of the Steamworks documentation under sales and marketing category. So this is all there. This is like for us developers to leverage. So let's not hesitate to ask stuff, because I see this very much often in our community, that people are like asking each other questions regarding Steamworks and like leveraging different Steam features. And each time I'm asking myself question like, why are you asking us? You could go directly to Valve and ask them, because they really want to see us succeed. That's in their best business as well.
Right.
So that's the most important one. And other than that, think about like your strengths, basically, maybe when doing this kind of stuff, like what you as a company or as a developer with a very specific type of game can leverage and utilize as a strength in this kind of event. Like maybe you have very good relations with Twitch streamers, so maybe you can involve them in this event. Maybe this is a game that could encourage other developers to go on board, because it's a game about making games. You know, like there's a lot of different niches that each indie can leverage if they think about it. And this is why it is important to remember that marketing is part of game development. It is not a separate thing. It is a part of game development, because your product and your company brand pretty much dictates what kind of marketing you can do and how successful it will be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, really appreciate you sharing those points and everything. Very, you know, good ones. And, you know, this is all important stuff that you need to be thinking about when you're doing these types of things, especially when creating events, Steam themed events that you're hosting or, you know, managing yourself. So, all right, Janek, before we end, we would just love to know what's the best way that people can, you know, learn more about Frogsong Studios, reach out to you. You know, what are some socials and other ways to reach out to you if anybody wants to talk?
Right. So Frogsong Studios has a really nice website at frogsong-studios.com, which has all about us available. And then also we are available on Steam. So if you see us, please go to our publisher page, give it a follow. If you see us on social media, on Twitter, also give us a follow. We are always happy to meet new people and basically talk about new partnership capabilities. And as of how to get a hold of me personally, well, you can use the contact form on Frogsong Studios website, obviously. But I'm also working closely with my friend Andrew here. So if you get a hold of Andrew, it is very much possible you will get a hold of me as well.
And as you mentioned, you're on Twitter too, right?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at HeartPenguin13.
All right, sweet. So we'll put that down there too in case people want to like either tweet or reach out or do whatever it is that you do on Twitter. Well, Janek, I really appreciate your time again, and thanks for sharing all that insight about how to create Steam events. I mean, there's a lot of great takeaways here, and again, can't thank you enough for being here on the show today.
Thank you for having me, and pleasure to share all of this because we are better in numbers as indies, and never forget about it.
Hey everyone, thank you for listening to another episode of Indie Game Movement. I'm Andrew Pappas, your host, and the show's producer is Mustafa Price. If you enjoy and value the show's content, you can support us even more by going to Patreon and visiting www.patreon.com/IGM podcast and select the tier that best suits your needs. Show notes for this episode can be found by visiting rengenmarketing.com, the number episode of the show. Rengen Marketing is a consulting marketing company that helps indie devs with their marketing efforts. Whether you need guidance with your game's marketing strategy or could use a free marketing plan template, then please visit www.rengenmarketing.com and take action. A special thanks to Dakota Saw for Season 2's opening theme and Melissa Gellis for the new logo design. And as always, thanks for being such great listeners, and we'll see you next time on Indie Game Movement.